Hi, my name is Carly and this video is about my first solo exhibition in 2015. It was made up of fairly raw pieces about the experience of having fibromyalgia. I've put this video together to provide some insight into what some of the pieces mean to me and a little bit about the process. I won't talk about all of the pieces, so there will be just the visuals of some of them. And I didn't think to put this video together until at least 12 months after the exhibition, so I've had to make do with the photos I can find to try and show the exhibition in the best way that I can. To begin, just a little bit about fibromyalgia. Fibro is different for everyone. For me, it began in my elbows, a little bit like tennis elbow, and then it spread from there to wrists, neck, shoulders, back, hips, a bit in my knees as well. The pain varies and changes over time, and it depends on general health, tiredness, repetitive activity, and just other random things that I don't know about and I can't control or foresee. Some common things that everyone with fibro seems to get, along with some sort of pain, is tiredness, but also an inability to sleep well. Another common element is fibro fog, which sometimes feels like there's kind of like a literal fog surrounding your head. Concentration and general awareness is difficult, and it feels like it's just sapping all your brain power. And you have to be careful about everything, saving up energy for things and then recovering afterwards. At the moment, I am quite a bit better health-wise than I was at the depth of my ill health, but it does ebb and flow, and any improvement is only the result of trying a lot of things: different medication, lots of resting, regular and painful myotherapy treatments, trying different dietary things and supplements, and various and expensive natural health treatments, and also just living a very careful lifestyle. I've also had to resign from jobs, and I get a great deal of support from those around me. I want to begin briefly with these Instagram words. They weren't part of the main exhibition, although they were for sale as prints, but if I was to do it again, they would be included. For the 2 weeks leading up to the exhibition, I posted an image a day on Instagram, and I did this because as the exhibition got closer, I suddenly realised how vulnerable I was making myself by sharing all this. It was something that I'd never done before. So I did this as a way to help myself get used to the idea, but also to introduce and invite others into this space that was the messiness of chronic ill health. So now to the main part of the exhibition. Lifting the veil. Does the veil protect me from what is around me, or does it keep me contained within myself? Does it stop me from seeing out, or does it stop others from seeing in? So veil or veil. I quite simply like the look and prefer the spelling of V-A-L-E. A veil or a valley can also both protect or harm. Quite a few of the pieces make reference to words or text and to the difficulty with words. When I am tired and in pain, I really struggle with words. I especially found this when I was both studying and teaching at the same time, because it felt as though I had been given only a small quota of words, and I used them up really quickly with these activities, which left nothing for the rest of life. This made everyday communication difficult, not to mention trying to communicate how I was actually feeling. Even though I feel like words aren't my most natural inclination, I do love stories and reading, and so I appreciated being able to interact with words in this physical way, in a nice, safe and kind of once removed way, by making things out of old books. By physically playing around with words in this more comfortable way, I was able to feel a bit closer to them again, but without the pressure of actually having to use them. I also just love being able to make things new out of something that would otherwise be discarded or thrown away. Something new from old. This whole concept really resonates with me, and it kind of gives me hope for my own seemingly broken and at least very old feeling body. There's a whole series of plaster works, but I'm only going to speak specifically about a couple of them. Pieces of Self was one of the first pieces I thought of after I took sick leave from teaching, but it took a while to actually begin to make, or at least experiment with making, as I was much too unwell to begin with. Despite the pain, this was one of the most important pieces for me to make, and it quickly became the centrepiece both conceptually and actually. It takes quite a long time to make as I mould the pieces to my own body with the plaster. I could have used someone else as the model, but it felt important that it was done on myself, by myself. The plaster process is a difficult one. Moulding the plaster onto myself is wet and cold, and I have to sit very still until it's dry enough to remove without destroying its shape. It's messy and it's lengthy and it's quite physically demanding. I was always very sore and tired the day after. Faith was made to contrast the plasterwork Pieces of Self, which is a lot about the difficulty and pain of ill health, and the feeling of separation from my own body. Faith, rather, is the idea of redemption of the body, a celebration of the body, rather than the idea that the body is just something that can weigh me down. I made it to see if I could. I made it because I really love the shadows that the wire creates, and I really love the way that it looks. But despite the more positive reasons behind the work, it was still actually quite a long and painful piece to make, because as the piece got larger, it's wire wrapped with wire, and so the wrapping became harder, and it's quite fine finger work. Self-portrait. Not quite myself. Yes, this one is made from moulds of myself, but it isn't quite right. It doesn't actually look like me. It's lopsided and it's off kilter. It was made from 3 different moulds of my head and neck, which were then joined back together, slowly, painfully, disjointedly. Repairing or decaying. Sometimes I'm not sure if I am improving or declining. Am I looking after myself or letting myself go? Am I helping myself or hindering myself? This Slow Stitches group of works has become an ongoing project for me. I had stayed away from hand sewing at first because I knew that it would hurt my hands. After a while though, the pain had changed and it wasn't so focused on my hands and fingers, and so I thought I would try. I began to sew for short periods and found it to be another activity that I could slot into my rotating list of things to do so that nothing became too repetitive. I found sewing to be calming. I never followed a pattern and instead was just playing around with what I had. And I found it best when I was deliberately slow. Speeding up would cause pain. So it became something that I would do even when my brain was tired and foggy, or when I needed to rest or calming, almost as a form of portable meditation. There was no point in rushing, and what was I trying to achieve? There was no pattern. There was no definitive end point. I could stop whenever I was ready. It was just all about the process. I choose to use only recycled or scrap material, things left over from other projects or material found in op shops. Some material is dyed using leaves or rust, which I often then use to give shape to the sewing. The frames are mostly second-hand also, some just from op shops or just around the house. Some are newish frames, but they're often bought for something else that didn't actually work out. But each frame, whether weathered or new, gives each piece of material and sewing a place of their own to show their new presence. These drawings were also a form of meditation for me. They're all freehand and without much structure. Whatever happened, happened. They all needed to be done slowly and with a reasonably loose grip so my hands and arms didn't hurt. and I continue to play around with this idea of simple repetitive drawings and meditation. Memorial 1 and 2 are both about grief. Grieving what has been, what might have been, what could have been, what isn't right now, what has been given up, what still needs to be given up that I've struggled to let go of. Is everything that I've had to leave behind because of this illness dead and buried, or might it be reassembled in some form one day? Will there be new things, or will I always just have to let go of things? So if you've made it this far, thanks for sticking with me, and I hope you found it interesting. Please recommend it to anyone you know who struggles with a chronic, especially invisible illness, as they may find it encouraging to see how others have expressed themselves. Finally, we should always end with hope. Even though it is still made from plaster, like many of the others about being unwell and having a broken body, still there is hope, even if sometimes it feels like it is only painted on the outside. Thanks again for watching.